Hi there, it's a pleasure knowing that you're watching Equinox Television. Thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Insight on Equinox Television. Tonight, we shall be looking at the issue of fake certificates. Tonight, we shall be making a retrospective view on the fake certificates that were recently discovered in the University of Abuja. Many staff who use fake certificates to gain employment in the University of Abuja. It was an issue that was brought up by a delegation from the Ministry of Higher Education. What next? After the discovery of another fake certificate, we shall be telling you about that in this edition of the program. We shall equally be looking at the bill that has been promulgated into law by the head of state Paul Biya on the 12th of July 2017. I'm talking about the creation of a common law bench at the Supreme Court. Equally in this edition of the program, we shall be making a retrospective view on what has been happening in the two English-speaking regions of the country. We'll take a look at the ghost town that was reserved for the new senior divisional officer for the Lebialem division in the southwest region of Cameroon. Ladies and gentlemen, join me and my guests in a jiffy. My guest tonight is the national president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. His name is Prince Michael Ngwese Ekose. He is the national president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. It's a pleasure welcoming you on board.
Thank you once again, Prince Hansen. I am delighted to be on this panel with you. And you have been one of those young journalists in Cameroon that has really marked me a lot. And so each time I have the privilege to sit under your interview, I try to prepare myself very well.
Okay, we are working for nation building to make sure that we have a better Cameroon tomorrow. Now, it's a pleasure welcoming you. We heard of you last time when we heard of the dismissal of the Secretary General of your party, and there was some sort of war of word on social media. Tell us more about that.
Well, you know, United Socialist Democratic Party is not the party of Prince Ekoso. It is the party of young Cameroonians who believe that Cameroon has to change. It has to change from its current state of decadence, moral decadence and economic hardship, to a better Cameroon where every Cameroonian can be proud to say, I am a Cameroonian wheresoever he or she is. So this vision is well spelled out, and the vision for a new nation of Cameroon is well spelled out. And the organigram of the party is well spelled out, and the functions of each individual within the rank and files of USDP is well spelled out. And we have rules and internal rules and regulations that everybody, including the national president, has to follow. In as much as whosoever cannot follow the internal rules and regulations of the party, that person is supposed to be called to order. And that was what happened with the Secretary General of USDP.
What did he do?
Well, there are some issues that has to do with the vision of the party. When you go out of the vision, we have to call you back into the vision. So when we try to call you back into the vision and you think that your own position to your own vision is more of a priority to the vision of the party, then the party has to carry out disciplinary measures against you. Mm-hmm. So that was virtually what happened.
So he was fired from the party?
He was fired from his post as the SG, but not from the party, because Article 27, sub 7 of our Constitution provides the possibility for anybody who has been under discipline to be able to write a recourse he has the right to be able to come back and to say, okay, he wants that things should be clarified, why he or she was disciplined, and probably put up his or her case the way he or she finds it. Mm-hmm. So we are still hoping that the former SG is going to come up with his own appeal.
Yeah, I'm sure you've read his post on social media.
No, we don't deal on social media per se with regards to very official documents. So the document that was served to him was an official document. So if he goes on social media and writing what kind of things he wants to write, it's up to him. So we are waiting for his official document.
Okay, now that was a teaser before we begin talking real issues in this edition of the program. Now, the USDP, we have not been seeing you around. What's happening with you? The Anglophone crisis. People have been looking up to political parties. Prince Ekoso, where have you been?
The truth is that probably you are so busy with Equinox, you really rarely find time to be able to follow the activities of USDP. USDP is one of those political parties that have been very outspoken and very straight and defending the laws of the country. And one of those aspects of the laws of the country stipulates that every individual has the right, to reivindicate issues. And the Anglophone crisis stems from the fact that there has been a lot of mismanagement with the current regime. And we all know that from the historical point of view, the Anglophone problem stems from the fact that two nations came together. And when we look at the historical situation, we must be able to understand that we have the Anglo-Saxon system of life and the Francophone system of life. These are two distinct cultures that came together and to form a nation called the Republic of Cameroon. Mm-hmm. And now, when a regime is elected into office to protect these values or these cultures, and the regime decide willfully to actually look low or to deprive one culture to the other, then there's bound to be a problem. And this is the problem that has been cropping up for years now, and the Anglophones felt that it was time for them to be able to speak out or they die out. Okay. So we have been very, very direct in our approach, and to tell the regime in place that what they are doing is wrong and that they are not defending the interests of Cameroonians. They are defending the interests of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we have been on ground, like when the meetings in Bamenda were taking place in December 2016.
December, January,
November.
It ended on the 30th of January.
Exactly. We were there, especially at Ayaba Hotel when the Prime Minister came there. We were in those discussions. And not only that, USDP has been working on the ground and providing solutions to the regime in place. We are not just interested to be able to cast the regime out, but we provide solutions, we provide ideas. We have written substantial documents, making analysis of the situations on ground and sending it to the presidency, send copies to the Prime Ministry and to some of the other ministries, But as we know the regime is one that does not listen to advice. So, but we have been doing our best, and our intention is to be able to make sure that Cameroon remain a country that is stable, because it's only when there is stability then we can actually have development, So those are the things that we have been doing, and we have been using both social media and groundwork to be able to put across our message and our vision for our country.
Mm-hmm. That's the take of the USDP on the crisis. What is your personal take on the crisis that has been rocking the two English-speaking regions of the country today? You, as somebody who is aspiring to lead Cameroon in future.
Yeah, I believe that the regime has made monumental errors, by first of all provoking the people to go on the street and to become radical. So the regime is supposed to be blamed for whatsoever is happening in this country right now. Because I do not see the need that police people should go into the university campus and start harassing students, going into their hostels and harassing them, breaking doors and raping some, brutalizing and killing some. In Bamenda, there was a lot of shooting and killing, which I personally went there and saw some of those families who lost their children and saw some of the places that those incidents occurred. So I believe that the regime has made a serious mistake, and the regime has to come back to reason, and without that, the regime risks actually pushing this country to the point where the country can break apart. So that is what I think, and that is why we are doing our best to be able to make sure that we advise our people to be consistent with the values that they cherish. One of those values is the value of peace. Peace and understanding, you know. So I always tell people that the Cameroon is not what it is because of good governance. As a matter of fact, this country is known for the worst human rights abuses that Africans have experienced. And what makes this country to be stable today is because of the kind of cultures that the people adhere to, and especially the Anglo-Saxon culture. They don't believe in violence. They believe in dialogue. And when the regime decides to replace dialogue for violence, then the regime should be ready to take the greatest hit that she will get before she gets out of power.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking, I've been watching you, expecting you to say something like secession, federalism, another state, 2 state, 3 state, 4 state. What is the stand of the USDP today? Are you still aspiring to be the president of the Republic of Cameroon? You as the national president of the USDP? Because many political parties have been taking their stand today. You look at the SDF, from their constitution, it talks of a 4-state federalism. Now, what about you?
Well, honestly, we also stand for federalism. But our federalism is very, very unique in its presentation. Mm-hmm. In order to be able to put this country together, we must be able to revisit history. Revisiting history must go to the 1961 Constitution, where Cameroon became a federal state, and which moves to the 1972 Constitution, and how the Constitution became was abused, you know, by...
That's from 1961
exactly,
to 1966, one-party system.
Exactly, then from 1972, we got to federalism, excuse me, mm-hmm. And then from there, we got again back to one-party system, and then in 1990, we got into multi-partyism, mm-hmm. which does not really provide the nature of the state. The nature of the state is what is at stake here, because the state seems to be a unity state, a diversified state, but does not respect values. The values that makes this country to be Cameroon is the French and the Anglo-Saxon system. So if you take these two and put together, then now you can start talking of a nation or a state. Mm-hmm. Now, we must visit that history and come back to the values that makes the country to be the country. That is the Anglo-Saxon system and the Francophone system. And when you go into it now, you have now different cultures that makes the country united. And you have in the Northwest, for example, you have different tribes. And those tribes, from the historical point of view, are in itself entities that could be classified as nations. You know, so Cameroon is a multinational nation, comprised of so many nations coming together. So how do you manage that kind of a situation? How do you manage that kind of a nation? You get back to the two main organs, that is the Anglo-Saxon and the Francophone system. Mm-hmm. From there now, you go now into breaking now the various tribes which are a people of themselves. From there now, you have two main states, and then now you have nations within the state. So that is how USDP sees the federalism. We are going to first of all have two
state federation.
Mm-hmm. And then now we break it down now to 10 sub-state federation. Do you get the point?
Absolutely.
Good. So in that way, this, once the president is coming from the Francophone subculture, automatically the vice president comes from the Anglophone subculture. Then now, in the other 10 states, governors are elected, not appointed. Now, the people in those cultures that has become one, for example, Northwest, you have different people there, but Northwest has become one. So now Northwest elects its governor. Now, beneath the governor, you have the different other administrative units, which are answerable to the governor. And then the governor is answerable to the president. So that is how USDP sees Cameroon. If Cameroon should, or if Cameroon can be peaceful in the next, let me say, 20 years, again, this is a system that is going to help the nation to be peaceful and to be stable. Without that, there will be consistent agitations coming up from time to time. And if we cannot solve these agitations by making the people to feel at home where they are, then we should be sure that in the next maybe 5 years, we are going to still have this kind of situation in Cameroon.
Okay, so that's politically, but you know, there are other arms when you look at the socio-economic and even cultural part of it.
Yes.
Even anthropological, because it talks about human mind and behavior and all that.
That's right.
How can you situate it?
Well, the point is that if you look at Cameroon, Cameroon is divided into different zones. You have the Sawa, you have the grass field, you have the Silo-Silien, you have the Beti,
in the east,
the Beti, which is comprised of the center, south, and east.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are those zones that have been classified already. So these people that have been classified in these zones have the same cultures. So if you put these people together, you can be able to have the same culture. So, but now it has been broken down. For example, you have the East region. Remember before Cameroon came to, when Cameroon got into reunification, we had two provinces. And the Francophone side had, I think, 3 provinces. But the Francophone side has emerged until they are having 7 provinces, and the Anglophone side has 8 provinces, sorry, and the Anglophone side is still remaining just with 2 provinces. These are the things that we have identified. Now that these areas, the Francophone side, have been broken down, it is good, because many of these sub-tribes have identified themselves with their culture. It is good. But now we have to be able to create a sense of administration in those sub-areas, in those sub-regions, in those sub-districts, in such a way that the people feel that they belong to this country. So that somebody can leave, for example, Jakiri. A child who is growing from Jakiri can aspire that one day he or she can become the president of this country. Somebody coming from Belabo, for example, can feel more Cameroonian, that he or she feels that tomorrow I can become the president of this country. So those are the kind of system that we want to create in such a way that every Cameroonian, wheresoever you find yourself, you can dream and your dream come to pass.
All right, now that's the stance of the USDP. Now, when you look at what the government has been doing, because those are measures that you are advancing for Cameroon to move forward. When you look at what the government has been doing so far to equally move forward with the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, are you satisfied with the measures so far? There have been redeployment of teachers and other measures put in place.
Well, I have mixed feelings with those measures that the government has put in place, or the government is putting in place. You know, one, it is a good thing, you know, and I would want the government to be honest to itself and to really appreciate this current crisis. Not to look at it from a very negative point of view, but to appreciate it, because this crisis has awakened the government from its slumber. So that is point 1. Point 2, the government cannot pretend to be putting into place policies, bringing up new policies, and those policies were the reasons why the crisis emerge in the first place. Now, those who came up with these revendications are languishing in jail. Some have gone on self-exile. Some are somewhere in between the lines. Some have become so quiet. Why do you implement the revendications when you are putting those people who are expert in that domain into jail? It doesn't really make sense. So one of the things that we have been advising the government of Mr. Biya is that they should release those who are in jail. I even proposed one point in time, I said, now one of the things that we also realize is that probably the government is finding it difficult to release these guys because the government is afraid that these guys will become national heroes. Now, this way our advice. The president or the regime or the government does not want these people to become heroes. They want Mr. Biya to always become the hero. He is the one who brought democracy. He is the one who is buying shoes for our children during Christmas period. He is the one who is giving us air to breathe. He is the one who is giving us drinking water. He is the one who is doing everything.
That's hyperbolic.
No, that is the impression that those who are around him have created around him and around Cameroonians. Because today you go to a minister cannot give a statement, a speech without saying that according to what Mr. President Paul Biya has said. So it means that the minister don't have any faculty for themselves. They only speak what Mr. Biya has said. Good and fine. But the point is this. I suggested that President Biya can share the glory into two. Right? He goes to Bamenda with the leaders of the consortium, maybe secretly, and then he organizes a rally. It's okay, my people, you are the part of the people who elected me as president in this country. So I want to address you, and with regards to the current crisis, I want to speak to you what I think. When he finishes his speech, he says, okay, these are your people that were arrested. I have shown you people good faith by releasing them to you. There, the people will clamor for their leaders. And then again, some people will also clamor that President Biya has done something outstanding. He goes to Buea and does the same thing. He shares the glory for himself and for the leaders who have been arrested. In that way, the country moves forward. But since nobody wants to listen, they think that because they think that they have the knife and the yam, they can do what they think. Good, we are watching.
Okay, now you've talked of the measures and the possible release of those who have been arrested. So your stand is that those who were arrested, all of them should be released?
Of course.
From prison, including
of course.
Journalists who have spent 5 months now in jail?
Of course. Of course. Most of those who have been arrested and jailed, I know them personally. Those are people that I have been talking with them. You know, one of the things that we
when you were talking with them, did they mention anything like secession? No. Somebody like Barrister Bala that I know personally, and I've been visiting them in Kondengi. I personally have been going to Kondengi, visiting all those people. But I want to make it very clear that even before this crisis came up, I have been going to Kondengi, visiting the inmates. And one of the greatest things that I express as shock is that 95% of the people in the inmates are young people like you and me. It is deplorable that potentials are languishing, and you will understand that the crimes, you see somebody tells you that because he stole a telephone. What is telephone today? And the person has been in jail for more than 6 years. What is telephone? The capacity of this young man is being depleted consistently, and he becomes more radicalized while he is in jail than when he is out. So I have been so concerned with the plight of Cameroonians, especially young Cameroonians. It's not just because of the current crisis. So the issue here is that this regime does not love young Cameroonians. They just use young Cameroonians as their means to be able to get to their ends, especially during elections. They come and give them 5,000 francs to go and manipulate votes and run with ballot boxes, risking their lives.
At the end of the day, none of these people who were even used to be to carry those risky jobs could be compensated even with a post in the administration. So that is one of the reasons that actually I think that there is need for these people to be released. They should be released unconditionally because they are not terrorists. They are Cameroonians, experts in their domains, potentially equipped to be able to give ideas that can help this nation to emerge. So if you put them in jail, you are not helping the country, you are not helping them, you are not helping yourself. Some people say, oh, if they release them, they will take them for sell out. Listen, there are very serious issues that we must start taking them seriously. There is no reason for you to put somebody in jail when the person can be useful out there. I think personally that somebody like Barrister Agboogbala and Dr. Fontaine Niba and many of them, like some of the journalists, have been serving this country with all of their hearts. So releasing them is not like a favor that you should be able to give to Cameroonians or to them, because they have been serving the country. So releasing them should not be with some conditions that, oh, they should sign one kind of document and whatnot. They should be released so that they can continue, even if they have to revalidate for federalism, because Agboogbala, like I know, has been standing for federalism. When they were talking about the common law, they said that it is only in a federal state that the common law can be preserved. They didn't say that the country should divide. A system of government called federalism does not mean that the country should divide, or does not mean that the country should secede. It is because of the action of the regime, of the government, the excess brutality that was meted on some of the protesters, that caused many of the Anglophones to become radicalized, and some went out. As they ran out of the country, they became more radicalized and they met with different ideas that has put the country in a stalemate now.
A state of quagmire.
Of course.
As we speak.
Of course. And some of them have become so radical and they want nothing else than secession. Who is the cause of this? Should we accuse Dr. Bala of Fontaine, who wanted the government to to adjust the educational system and the justice system? No, it doesn't make sense. Somebody is giving you an advice to be able to help you to become effective in your work. You make the person to become your enemy. It doesn't show leadership.
Talking about the release of persons, just an information that the Committee to Protect Journalists has been hammering equally on the government. Recently, the Committee to Protect Journalists, the African Program Coordinator Quintal, wrote to the CAF President, Ahmad, asking CAF President to mount pressure on the Cameroonian government to release these journalists, or CAF should withdraw the hosting right of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations, because the Committee to Protect Journalists is worried that if journalists are arrested, those journalists who will be coming to cover the African Cup of Nations, they will not be free.
They stand a risk.
It should equally be noted that Atia Tirarus and others have spent 5 months now in jail without trial.
Sure.
Spending many months in jail without trial, does this speak well of a justice system in a country like Cameroon?
That is one of the reasons why I think that the regime has actually failed Cameroonians in many ways. You know, because how do you just arrest somebody and put the person in jail? Like I told you before, some of our young people are in jail in Konegi today in other detention centers in Cameroon for many years without them going to court. You know, so the problem of freedom of expression in Cameroon is one that has to be looked into critically. The fact that I have a different opinion from you does not necessarily make me to be your enemy. Journalists are the mouthpiece of the common man. And if something is happening in the quarter, the journalist has the right to be able to say it. Though some people are saying that, oh, there is a way to say it. True, but these journalists went to school and they are professionals. I don't think somebody like Atia Tillarius was saying something which was out of place. As a matter of fact, I don't even know why he is in jail.
Atia was just arrested in a circumstance that we can not even describe. When he was in Buea on that fateful 9th of February.
Yes.
He was arrested alongside Amos Fofong and somebody who allegedly, from the Northwest region, allegedly carried tracts to call for a boycott of 11th February.
Yes.
That's a version of the police. Now, many have been clamoring, like you, a politician, for these persons to be released. But when you look at other measures that have been put in place by the government, let's come back to what we're talking about. The head of state who, on the 12th of July, promulgated into law the bill to create a common law bench at the Supreme Court. Does it mean that for 55 years there have been the absence of the common law system at the Supreme Court and things have been moving smoothly? Do you really think that this struggle, what we call the struggle now, has really yielded fruit in Cameroon? Looking at recent decisions taken, especially by the head of state.
Yeah, as I earlier said, you know, I would rather, if I were the president of this country today, I would rather congratulate those who reivindicated for these things, because now the government is putting into law certain practices which would have been natural and which would have occurred long ago. Like, for example, the creation of the common law bench at the Supreme Court. Why is it only now? It is because the Anglophone came up. It's because Bala and the lawyers and the teachers came up and said, these things cannot continue this way. We think that it can go this way and it's going to give more credibility to the system. So, the justice system in Cameroon has been suffering of, let me say, a kind of sickness, a syndrome which I can call it is a dictatorial syndrome, where somebody can sit in his office and call a commissioner of police and say, go and arrest this person, and the person is arrested without even any arrest warrant, and the person is sent to jail, and the person stays in jail for several years, and then at the end of the day, when the person is actually dying, they may send the person out, you know, and nobody says anything about it. The common law system is different, and I think that the common law bench should be given the maximum authority to function properly, because the common law system is different from the French civil law.
The Napoleonic.
Exactly. Where before you arrest someone, the person is served a convocation. He comes to the police, they question him on the allegations. And if the information provided does not warrant that he should be arrested, he goes back to his house. The investigation continues. If after 2 years the investigation shows that the person is guilty, that is when he is arrested and put in jail. And after some few days, he goes to court, and then they pass judgment on him. How many years he's going to spend in jail. But the civil law system is not like that. Somebody you just have a simple misunderstanding with somebody on the street. Since his father is a commissioner of police, he goes and reports to his father. The next moment, police people come and harass you. You are in jail. So the common law system and the common law bench at the Supreme Court should be given its maximum authority to function properly. If it is just a sugar-coat solution, then the regime is fooling itself, because the problem will still come up some other time, and this time I don't know what is going to happen.
All right, before we take a transition, in 1 minute, what will be the solution that USDP can advance today to take us out of this quagmire, this dilemma?
One of the solutions that we have been proposing ever since is this. One, those who are arrested should be released. Two, the president of the country, Mr. Paul Biya, should go down to the northwest and the southwest and address the people who elected him as president. Because until now, I know that he was elected. And he was elected not by Francophones, but by Cameroonians. So he should go down to Bamenda and to Buea and address the situation and say, you are my people, you elected me, and I have come to listen, or I have come to say to you that please let your hearts not let your hearts not be afraid, or tell them something of hope. Who wants a president who things are going from bad to worse? He doesn't say anything. He moves from Cameroon to France, from France to Switzerland. He stays him out when the country is in crisis. Who wants to have that kind of a president? Who does not care? Who does not take the worries of the people at heart? Who wants to have that kind of a leader? So one of our advice has always been that the president should take the authority that the people of this country gave him into his hands. Because until now, we think that the president is not acting as the president. He's acting as one king who goes in, who sits there and then gives instructions to people, go do this, you do that, and so on and so forth. He doesn't care to know what is the state of the people. So USDP feels that for someone to really be a leader should have the heart of a father. A heart of a father does not mean that you are weak. For you to be able to calm down and meet your child who is crying does not mean that you are weak. Does not mean that you are powerless. As a matter of fact, those who have enormous strength are the people who should be able to demonstrate the highest degree of humility.
Okay. All right, let's take a break now. We go to the machines and have this report from the University of Buea, the installation ceremony of the new Vice Chancellor, Professor Horace Manga. And what caught our attention was the protests out of the amphitheater, Dorothy Lumunga Njoma. Students were asking the Minister of Higher Education to make sure that he erases the issue of fake certificate in the University of Buea. Watch this.
I officially extend you as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea.
Professor Ngumu Horace Manga is coming to manage the oldest Anglo-Saxon higher learning institution, the University of Buea. The students expect change from their new Vice Chancellor. First, they want their student union back, and for him to investigate and put an end to the recent development of fake certificate allegedly circulating on the campus.
I think it's a new Vice Chancellor, and I know that with the credentials that he has, he cannot easily be corrupt by the so-called fake administrators in Buea. I know he's going to do his good job, try to solve our problem, like grant us a larger platform of our student union, then look for means to rectify all advanced level since from the creation of UB from 1993 to present day.
Delivering his installation speech, Professor Jacques Famdungu, the Minister of Higher Education, while congratulating the outgoing Vice Chancellor, Dr. Naloba Lionga, for her bravery for close to 5 years, described the incoming Vice Chancellor, Professor Ngumu Horace Manga, as a square peg in the square hole.
I have sent a very long and important message to the Vice Chancellor. He knows what he must do. He knows, the Vice Chancellor knows, and the Vice Chancellor knows what they must do in order that this university become the best university in Cameroon.
And to Professor Aku Edwards Oben, who is taking over from Professor Maurice Trenti as the Pro-Chancellor, called on him to make UB a dream university. The Higher Education Minister will later step down on his way out of the university to address some students that were disgruntled with the news that some employees of the University of Buea are allegedly using fake certificates.
I've understood your problem. Yes. I read your message. Now you will solve this problem. Thank you very much.
Derek Jato. Derek Jato there ending that report. You are watching The Insight on Equinox Television. My guest tonight is Prince Michael Ngwese Ekose. He is the national president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. You watched that report there, the issue of fake certificate in the University of Buea. After a delegation from the Ministry of Higher Education about a month ago discovered that some staff use fake certificate to gain employment. The Secretary General for Human Rights Southwest Region recently discovered that the Mayor of Buea, Patrick Ekema Esunge, did not pass the advanced level, that he had an E grade. That's 1 point, but gained admission into the University of Buea. He had the support, or should I say, the facts that came from the GCE board. That is why the students came out during the visit of the Minister for Higher Education, even though the Mayor of Buea, Patrick Ekema Esunge, has not yet reacted to the facts that were brought out. Now, what is your take on this?
Well, thank you once again. The issue of fake certificates in Cameroon is very, very rampant, not only in the University of Buea, but recently the one of the University of Buea is very, very shocking because one of the prominent leaders, in fact the mayor of the City Council of Buea, is a victim of that allegation. So it's very, very discouraging. It's disheartening. You know, I would like to say that the regime, to my impression, works closely with those who are fake. You know, so Mayor
Ekema is fake?
Mayor Ekema, I mean, the certificate, when the certificate is fake, then you are fake. You know, so Mayor Ekema is not the only one. There are hundreds of them, you know, plying the corridors of our administration with virtually no certificate, but they are the ones leading us.
He can be considered today as a good politician. Does it really matter, certificates and being a politician?
No, those are two different things. This one is a criminal case, you know, because if you forge a certificate, it's a criminal case. So if that is the case with Mayor Ekema, then it's a criminal case, and then he has to be prosecuted for giving an impression that he has a certificate which he did not. So it will mean that he came to the University of Buea with an advanced level which was not his. Or how was he admitted? Because in Cameroon, you cannot be admitted in any university without you providing advanced level. So if he was admitted and until he graduated and has a degree, and even has a master's degree from that same university, then it will mean that he provided a document that gave reason why he should be admitted, you know, into the university in the first place. So if he provided that document, and the document is showing now that he never passed the advanced level, then let us know what kind of document he provided. Is
it an example or a microscopic view of what might be happening in other areas in Cameroon? The issue of fake certificate has been hitting the news.
Yeah, of course.
Does it mean that the system is corrupt?
Yes, Prince Hansen, it is very, very obvious. There is no gainsay about that. The regime feeds on corruption. I have always said that. The regime feeds on corruption. So when people talk about fake certificate of Mayor Ekema, I am not supporting Mayor Ekema, but he is not the only one. And as I said, we have hundreds of them plying the corridors of our administration with fake certificates, you know, because the issue of education has been devalued in our country. The system does not give value to certain things like education, justice, and morality, and all of that. the regime does not give value to all of those areas. And so if the regime does not give values to all of those areas, so people who want to emerge by all costs can use every means to be able to survive. And I think that Mayor Ekema is just a victim of the circumstances that is going on in our country right now. You know, Mayor Ekema has been very, very brutal with regards to the struggle, you know. So he has been a target. And they always say that those who have glass houses don't shoot stones, you know, don't throw stones. Mm-hmm. So Mayor Ekema has been throwing stones, and people too have been throwing stones at him. So this is the consequences of a kind of system where there is no order, there is no organization, there is no proper administration of the people. So the leaders should be ready even for the worst.
All right. It should be noted that the mayor has not yet made an official statement to those allegations. Of course, we should remain with the balance and fairness when we are treating issues like this. Now, before we go, Prince Michael Ngose Ekose, the national president of the national president.
In my family, we have the Ekose and the Ekoso.
And Ekoso.
Yes, so
you are the
I am Ekoso, and other people in the family have Ekose.
Yes, the national president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. There are other issues. How far have you gone with the Article 66? Of the Constitution? Some time ago, 2 years back, you launched a manhunt on state officials, including the President of the Republic.
Yes. You know, one of the things that I would like to really appreciate the vision of USDP is the fact that USDP is not biased in the way it analyzes national documents, especially the Constitution of the country. The Constitution of the country, especially Article 66, stipulates that everyone who becomes a leader, before he becomes a leader, must be able to state in black and white what are his properties. You know, what did he have before he became a leader? And after he goes out from that responsibility, he must also go and declare what he has gotten. But for more than how many years now, that article has never been implemented. Even the president himself, we don't know what he had before and what he has now. So if he is resigning tomorrow, or if he is beaten in the 2018 elections by USDP, you know, we will not be able to even bring him to justice, because Article 66 is still hanging in space. Whereas the Constitution is the supreme document of the land. So if the regime is refusing to apply Article 66, we will keep pushing the regime to a point where they must be able to be answerable to their actions. The Constitution is not a document that an individual can take it and turn it upside down and manipulate it for his or her personal gain. The Constitution reflects the ideology, the vision, and the aspirations of the people of Cameroon. So Article 66 is that article that makes sure that everybody who becomes a minister or a director or whosoever must be able to be mindful that the responsibility he is coming into, and to some extent USDP is going to push it further, in the sense that anybody who is supposed to be appointed by the president should appear in front of the Senate or the National Assembly, and questions should be given to him on how he is going to manage that responsibility. That is the kind of government that we want to put in place. That is the kind of government that we think can be able to be at the service of the people than to be at the service of an individual.
Okay. All right. Before we go quickly, you've watched the war of releases from the Court of Appeal in Yaoundé, the bishops in Cameroon, over the passing away of Monseigneur Jean-Marie Benoit Bala. What is your take on that? The bishops have maintained their stance. He was brutally assassinated.
If the former investigation or the autopsy that was carried on revealed that Bishop Francois Jean-Marie Bala was assassinated, and the characteristics of the assassination was documented, I don't see any reason why the government should be going again to say they should do a revision, you know, of the autopsy. It doesn't really make sense. I think that I have always advised, and I will keep saying this, leadership is humility. You can make an error, but when you say that you are sorry for the error that you have made, even God himself will be able to forgive you.
So who are you referring to here?
Who assassinated Bishop Bala?
That is a question.
So the government, one of the roles of the government is to be able to provide security for its citizens. Bishop Bala was a citizen of this country. And to the responsibility that he had, he was supposed to be given even some degree of maximum security. The circumstances surrounding his death does not tell well, neither for the image of the country, neither for the image of the Catholic Church, neither for the image of
those who parade the corridors of power.
Of power, you know. So what I am trying to say is not to point finger at someone, but when a circumstance or a situation has occurred, I assume that as the president of the country, there are issues that the president must come out and say something about it.
All right. Okay, we've come to the end of this program, this edition of the program, The Inside on Equinox Television. We have many issues to discuss about, but we are against time. But if just one or two sentences, if you were asked today, should children go back to school in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon?
Well, the answer cannot be categorically yes, and it cannot be categorically no. But the point is that there should be a dialogue table where both parents and teachers and the government come together and discuss the way forward. I will not appreciate that my child stays at home. I will not appreciate that any child, any Cameroonian child stays back at home. But the point is that we are in a period of crisis, and this crisis needs to be resolved. And the best way to resolve it is sit on a dialogue table as I'm talking with you, and let's discuss the issues, and then we get our children back to school.
All right. It was a pleasure being with you, Prince Michael Ngwese Ekoso. You are the national president of the United Socialist Democratic Party. You are preparing for 2018. Absolutely. Are you will be a candidate?
My candidacy was declared since 2016, and I have received so many interviews on this regard. And I think that USDP is really prepared. Even tomorrow, if elections are called tomorrow, USDP is prepared to be able to make sure that Cameroonians have the best life that they deserve, you know. And we believe that we want to make Cameroon great again. And this is our slogan. Don't wait for the change, be the change. And this change, we have to realize it now.
It was a pleasure being with you tonight in this day's edition of the program. We wish you a safe journey back to the nation's capital, Yaoundé.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure being with you. It was equally a pleasure having you in this day's edition of the program, The Inside on Equinox Television. Take our rendezvous next week, Sunday. If you did enjoy the program, same channel, Equinox Television, same time, 6:30 p.m. For Ansin Chanji and Innocent Abega, we are signing out from Douala. Goodbye.